G'day and welcome back to the Voice of a Veteran podcast. This episode is a special episode with the one and only Mr. Andrew Papadopoulos, or simply Andrew Pap, one of the most recognisable names in the Australian fitness community. I travelled to Perth to have a chat with Pap, who's actually a veteran himself, and was really amazed by the conversations we had. He really affirmed himself as a warrior of not only physical training, but mental and mindset. And this episode is full of amazing insights of this guy and his journey, and it was so inspiring to sit and listen to a man who really has it figured out and has been on his mission for a long time now. So tune in. This is a really great episode with some key takeaways for anyone who is listening and wants to focus on some mindset and some motivation and really hear from a very, very authentic Australian himself. Welcome back to another podcast episode of Voice of a Veteran. I'm here with the man, the myth, the fitness legend, Mr. Andrew Pap. He is the founder of 365 and he has so many different labels and identities, and we might dive into that. But first and foremost, welcome, Andrew.
Heston, thanks for having us, mate. Appreciate being here, and thank you for travelling to the West Coast, and I'm glad we could connect.
Absolutely, yeah. For those who haven't seen this, I'm over here in, where are we? Mullaloo,
yeah.
Up here over here in WA during the middle of the COVID lockdown. So I managed to get over here from Brizzy after spending that time with Mum for Chrissy. And just before this is the very first podcast I've rolled out by myself. So Pap got to witness me break one of the cables, forget a micro SD card, go and drive into the place that didn't open until 11 o'clock, leave him high and dry without any rations and water. And he's set about digging into his old veteran identity to do what he can. So mate, I want to talk about you. You're known to be Mr. Fitness. You know, I first came across you social media wise in the fitness world, but what do you like to be known as, mate? Like what defines you? What's your identity?
That's a good question. Mate, I think, you know, I am heavily entrenched within the fitness industry, and I don't blame anyone to put that label on me at all. You know, it's heavily, my lifestyle revolves around it. I'm, you know, quite active. I partake in a daily routine that exists solely in that industry. But I really want to be someone who is not only trying to lead by example, but I want to be someone who has built themselves in a manner that can support others. You know, I've always wanted to live a life of service, regardless of where that may be. And for me, that's where I get the greatest fulfillment, is using my strengths and learning from my weaknesses to gain empathy, to gain experience and develop strategies and methodologies that can assist people in one way or the other.
Gotcha. A life of service. Tell me about that. That's a great piece here, particularly, you know, for our community. But mate, you've been a veteran yourself, but you know, like you said a lot, you really enjoy supporting and helping others. So tell me about this life of service and what that means to you. Well,
mate, I've had humble beginnings, and that had allows me to gain a perspective on both sides of the fence. So, you know, I came from a family that was broken and decimated with mental illness.
Okay.
So everyone in my family, bar myself, has mental illness, whether it's schizophrenia, bipolar, multiple personality disorder. So growing up in that aspect and seeing my parents deal with this and slowly fall into a lower socioeconomic chain. You know, we went down to the bottom of the ladder where we needed government housing, people came to bring us food. Like we hit rock bottom. Wow. And coming from a position where, you know, my parents had their own, they started in a tough place, but they built themselves up and they started their own business and gained some success. But seeing it all crumble underneath them and out of their control, their circumstances were really tough. And I had to kind of learn this and understand it and gain awareness of this fact growing up. So I was forced to mature quite early, and the experiences that I had, both personally, within the family, within my environment, it shaped me. It wasn't my identity. I didn't choose. It didn't dictate who I was. I had to respond in a manner that would be conducive for me to do what I believed I deserved. Being surrounded in hardship, being surrounded in tough circumstances, and particularly where I was living in housing commission, pretty much the whole suburb was in a similar state. And it's understandable. I have the understanding that I can appreciate people seeing their environment and believing that's what it is. Yep. Because you're conditioned to it. But because I was, prior to going into this housing estate, I saw the other side. So I knew that there was other options, but I could definitely empathize with people who didn't and who conducted themselves in a manner that, that society frowns upon or thinks it is right or wrong, whatever it may be. But having that, it was more of a coping mechanism, and I needed to respond in a way that wouldn't be self-destructive. And that's where I've gained a lot of my certain philosophies and a lot of things that have built strong foundations quite deep.
Gotcha. Mate, there's a lot there. Wow, some very humble beginnings. And it's interesting part for me sitting here hearing that is, I obviously had no idea about you, and it's not something that you bring to your front. A lot of people would potentially use something like that as potentially a level of entitlement to enable them to achieve progression or shortcut progression. But you've definitely really self-made yourself. Well, I guess my next question is, what does mental health mean to you? It probably means a lot more to you than it does most people. Talk to me about that. You've seen it from the clinical extremes through to just everyday life. So tell me, mental health. What does mental health mean to Andrew Pap?
Well, for me, getting involved with being active and being around positive, like-minded, positive people is a necessity, and having that support network. But as you said, I've seen the darkest parts of what the mind can do. Yep. And I've seen the strongest parts too. Yep. So I've seen both sides of the fence. And I guess what I've also witnessed is that, for me, having this determination and the ability to continue to march forward and push forward no matter what is in front has derived from knowing that's always my choice at the end of the day. Yep. And seeing my family had that choice taken away from them. They didn't choose to become ill. They didn't choose to lose their livelihood and deal with the conditions that it brings. I would never really feel sorry for myself. I could never justify to quit or stop, because I've always had that choice, and that choice alone is privilege.
Gotcha.
And I think it's natural to have self-pity. It's natural to feel. I encourage people never to be like, you've always got to be positive, you've always got to be happy. It's unrealistic. You've got to be completely have that self-awareness, situational awareness of how do I feel, how's the circumstances or situation making me feel, how does it make other people around me feel, and what's the best way to conduct myself from here on in. And that's where you can define yourself from your actions in response to those circumstances, even when those circumstances haven't been of your choice.
Brilliant, mate. You're talking about language, self-awareness, situational awareness. Sounds like you've done a bit of military training. Tell us about your time as a veteran, mate.
It was short and sweet.
Yep.
I finished high school, year 12. I graduated. I wasn't...
Whereabouts was this?
This is on Central Coast.
Okay.
So about an hour and a half north of Sydney. And I wasn't completely convinced that university was my calling. And a few of my friends joined up for the gap year, and I just thought, I really enjoy physical fitness. I conduct myself quite well in a structured environment, and this is an opportunity that you can't experience outside the ADF.
And so this is ADF gap year.
Gap year.
Yeah, got it. Okay,
correct.
Cool.
Yeah.
Has anyone served in your family beforehand, or was there any other military ties other than wanting routine and structure and challenge?
My grandfather on my dad's side, he was in the Greek army.
Oh, wow.
And he fought against the Axis back in World War II.
There you go.
Yeah.
Legit.
He was a commando, and I've got his I've got all these gongs and certificates and stuff like that.
Wow.
It's pretty
good drills.
It was quite humbling to read what he went through.
Yeah. Mate, they did it tough back then.
Oh, they definitely did. But yeah, so having that as a bit of a background for sure, that gave me a bit more awareness maybe than what other people may have had, a bit more perspective.
But your purpose for service was more self-development?
Self-development, absolutely. I was only 18 and I knew nothing, and I thought, the only thing that grows somebody is throwing yourself in the deep end and seeing how you respond. And so I only served from 2018 to 2019.
Yep. Whereabouts?
I first was just, you did your boot camp, Kapuka, IAT's training in Singleton, and then 6 months in Townsville.
Okay. Which battalion were you with up there?
Well, there's 1 and 2 at the time, but we were actually with a separate group called Combat Training Centre, CTC.
That's it.
Yeah, so we did serve alongside other full-time members, but I think they were the type of people who just weren't coping or didn't want to be there, so they pushed them into CTC. But mate, that was a great learning experience because we got to learn, different weapon systems, different tactics. We got to train alongside the men and women who were going, who were being pre-deployed, doing all their pre-deployment training. So
CTC is that element that provides the enemy force for a lot of the training. Just for those listening who haven't heard this before, they go out there and they provide us our enemy party. So we're not just sitting there fighting our own battles, and they do all sorts of foreign weapons, foreign tactics, and it's probably a pretty good place to be able to demonstrate some of your own initiative. But particularly as a gap year, that would have been so interesting to see from your perspective.
It was, I always wanted to do well, and I was particularly I was always in a 2IC role, and I just wanted to make sure my guys were okay, make sure we got the objective done, learning along the way, making mistakes and improving, and it was an environment that I did flourish in, and I did get to see a lot in Townsville at the time. I did get to see a lot of guys returning as well, and I got to see and hear the severity of some of what happened in deployment. It didn't deter me from staying on. It actually, it kind of grew my resolve, strengthened my resolve to commit. Just my family circumstances just went south real hard. And after the gap year, it wasn't in a position to be away from home.
Okay.
So that's one of the biggest regrets I have in my life.
Oh, really? Why's that?
I always...
As in leaving the military?
Leaving the military. Okay. I always felt a calling to be of service, and I felt like that was a strength of mine to be in that position. I don't have any regrets now. I mean, the regret would be the wrong word. But I had a good friend in the military who from IATs, from Singleton, and he used to always confide in me, and he was a bit of a troubled guy, heart of gold. He was a leader, and I looked up to him, and he was a bit older than me. And, I was with him through a lot of the downs that he went through, and I left, he stayed on, and eventually he took his own life a couple of years afterwards, and we sort of stopped talking. And so hearing that, I know it wasn't my responsibility, and I'm not responsible for it, but I just thought, what if I was still in, and what if we were still in contact? And there's other people out there, going through the same thing. Pardon me. So that's where, I took a few different directions to do as much as I can out here than what I would do in there. Wow.
Mate, you are right there exposed close to it on the ground, some of the issues that our veterans currently go through. But I mean, you're obviously set upon your path. It's incredible the amount of just sitting across with the amount of resilience and experience you have as 30 years old?
Yeah.
Spring chicken. Well, mate, there's so many layers to you, and it's fantastic to see that. Talk to me how you then became into the fitness. I mean, did you gravitate that before military service? It was obviously probably very pivotal during military service, but how did, apart from the family circumstances, talk to me about that progression to where you are right now?
Yeah, look, as you know, I was in infantry. Fitness is a huge thing, and I never wanted my fitness to be a weak point. I wanted that to not even be questionable, and just focus on everything else that needs to be squared away. And seeing how far I can push myself, and seeing the dynamics that occur within group training, and particularly obviously when the emphasis is to, save each other, protect each other. It's obviously at a grander scale. It's trying to teach civilians that same to I guess insert themselves with as much veracity and commitment and selflessness is hard when your life isn't on the line and all your friends' lives are on the line. But I knew there was a lot of powerful transferable benefits that the military taught me that I could also instill in others. But I left the military, and I actually signed up to become a paramedic.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So in Central Coast again?
Yeah, I was on the Central Coast.
Cool.
So I started to do all the training and testing for that, and I was waiting for my enlistment date. And in that time, I just worked I was a skilled labourer for almost 2 years. I wasn't really brought up on the tools, so I actually learned a lot about everything to do with anything. And that taught me a lot of lessons. I ended up managing, a group of guys every day, every week. It was minimum wage. It was really hard. It was really hard physical work, but I think it was a great part of my life to gain more perspective on what it's like to have a proper full-time job and work outside of the military, and prior to going into the fitness industry. I got my enlistment date, and obviously that's something to be excited about, because I always thought in the military I would move into become a medic in some capacity. So that's why I transitioned to paramedics. Got my enlistment date, but speaking to a few paramedics were my friends. And then as I evolved over those few years, I realized I wanted to be more proactive than reactive.
Got it. Okay.
So I left.
Good.
Yeah.
Good words here. Good words here.
Yeah. I decided to leave and put that behind me and to get into the fitness industry, because even prior to the enlistment date and I was running this job as a skilled labourer, I started to run outdoor training sessions and bringing a lot of those dynamics and things I learned for people just to come for free. So I was running 3 nights a week, 30 people, mix of males and females, different types of training. I used to train with them. And so then that sort of progressed into maybe I can actually bring this to a business and a career and a lifestyle. And so I just, at the time, I was sleeping on my sister's couch. I had pretty much no money to my name. And I had 2 mates who went in the military with me and lifelong friends. And they said to me, like, Pap, we know you got a great concept. We know you got the right aptitude for it. We just know the finances is not on your side. So they loaned me $5,000 each.
Yeah, right.
That was enough to buy a shitty van, nondescriptive white vehicle, some crap equipment. I actually, one of my mates, Neville, he's actually a vet as well. He helped me spring up, like pry these big logs out of like a park to use those. We attached handles onto it, got jerry cans and ropes, all your generic stuff. Perfect. And I got my certificates and my license and my permits, and I bought brochures and went door knocking, just went hustling in the streets. And I started what we called Battle Fit Australia, which the acronym was just from BFA, Basic Fitness Assessment. And I was like, I'm going to name it Battle Fit Australia. It sounds bigger than it is. And all of a sudden I had 50 people joining the first 10-week progressive fitness program. And mate, it was fantastic. I was back into my element, leading people into some questionable training. Now I look back at it. But what people learned from that was it just exposed them to something that they were never exposed to before. And people became strong, resilient. They started to give a shit about other people besides themselves, and realized that, their capacity for what they can actually take and give is so much higher than they previously knew.
Right, and that's it. Sitting from the outside, watching the way you do your fitness is a lot of people, work out for a purpose, primarily be that like a superficial purpose or a physical purpose or even like a performance result. But the way in which you go about doing your things, it's all those second and third order effects in the mental and the emotional realm. You're talking about building up resilience, building up that camaraderie, building up that all those personal elements of those people. You can tell that's where you probably really get your drive from. While there's fantastic physical outcomes, they almost, when I'm watching you from the outside, feel like the fitness is sort of a byproduct of that mental and emotional alignment.
Absolutely. I'm not training elite athletes. I'm not training sporting teams. That's not my realm. I give good, structured, scientifically proven, backed programming. But like you said, that is the byproduct. That isn't the end goal. We're building real people here, and that's where I'm sure we can talk later where the 365 comes in.
What are you doing now? Tell us what you are doing now.
Well, currently, I've moved to WA.
You have?
So Western Australia.
All the way over here.
All the way from the East
Coast.
With
your beautiful wife?
With my wife.
Everyone, it's not fair. What was your wife? Former Miss?
Miss Universe.
Yes.
Australia.
Yeah, right. There we go. These babies are going to come out doing burpees and walking the runway. That's fantastic.
Right. Yeah. No, mate, it was an opportunity we weren't looking for a fresh start. We weren't looking to escape, but we were looking to build. I feel like it's the next chapter in our life. We're wanting to build a family, and Renee's family's here, my wife's family's here. We're building a house, and it's the lifestyle that was enticing in terms of slowing things down. We got everything that we could get from Sydney, and it was a great experience. But we also saw, the good and bad in a heavily metropolitan area where people are all looking to prove themselves one way or the other. And the fitness industry can be riddled with some poisonous people and poisonous thinking.
Very inauthentic, I find it. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm sure there's other industries, and I've heard, but
it's all the same. But
it's all the same, right? Just people in general can be like that. So I thought, okay, let's go over. Let's look at starting this next chapter in our life and continue on. So we're sitting here in a studio that I've just leased out.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm going to give it a facelift, got new equipment coming in, and this is for my own training, but also to film content.
Gotcha. This is for 365?
The Everyday 365. So that's an online program where we focus on training, nutrition, but mindset is a massive pillar in that. You know, we want to retrain people's thought processes on how they pursue their goals, understand why they're pursuing their goals, their relationship to said goals, but also, you know, gain further awareness of themselves and their environment. Because if your default setting when times are tough is to take action in ways that aren't conducive to you achieving goals, you're always going to be circling back to where you started.
Gotcha.
Right. So because it's easy to take positive action when things are good. It's easy to get to training. It's easy to eat right when everything is going your way. We all know that.
Yep.
When shit hits the fan, which it will, it's just a matter of time, how do we respond to that? And so if you start to build certain mindset capabilities and you know, certain ways of thinking, and we talk about topics and subjects and themes that are thought-provoking, that make you question and think, and we want people to be fluid. We want you to be fixed in one way of thinking. Yeah. And there's so much information and noise out there, particularly in the fitness industry. It's hard for people to know which way is up, left, down,
absolutely.
right.
It's very saturated.
Right. Yeah, it's saturated. So we give people some clarity, some structure, and some ground in their own self, and if they can do that, then they can have the ability to take every day one step at a time, just in the right direction. It doesn't have to be a race. Yeah, nice. As long as they're in a net positive, the results will come.
Net positive. I like that. It's quite progressive. So there's a lot of given on your behalf. Have you know much about the love languages?
I've heard a bit about love language.
Yours 100% is acts of service. You enjoy doing things for others. But I'm intrigued to figure out how you derive value from what you do from people. You know, you get a lot of value giving to people, but what makes you tick? How do you need to feel valued doing all this? Or how do you derive value when there's not others around to prop and support you up, or to provide you with the opportunity to support them?
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, I think there's a quote out there, and I don't know who said it. I'm not going to pretend. I'm going to paraphrase this and butcher it. Along the lines of, we suffer a lot more in our imagination than we do in reality. Yep. And I feel that if you can't be in a room on your own and deal with what's going on, and with your own demons and what's happening within your life, then you're no good to yourself and you're no good to anybody else. So I think squaring away your own mindset and understanding that, you're not perfect, you make mistakes, things aren't easy, but you're doing everything you can, and you surround yourself with people who are similar, who are like-minded, that gives you the ability to go, okay, well, what does make me feel fulfilled? What gives me satisfaction, gives me purpose, belonging? And I find we just don't get taught in today's society. The social culture isn't about giving. Yep. It's a lot about building and making something of yourself, and there's a lot of I. Yep. And which this isn't a bad thing either. It isn't bad to look at wanting to get greater finances, build your career, build your physique. Mm-hmm. These aren't problems. It's just your relationship to these problems. Goals aren't problems. Yep. So if you feel like that you are somebody who has low self-esteem and isn't worthy unless you achieve X, is the problem. Because you've got to realize that we're all individuals with our own identities, and we all have our flaws, but that's a part about being human. Yep. And trying to solve them, live with them, overcome is the journey of life. And if you can be happy with who you are, if you can know your strengths and weaknesses is who you are, and something to continue to evolve and sharpen, then everything else around you are just, extras. Yep. They aren't the be all end all. And I think that's what we've been flipped around. Like you'll get everyone will start favoring you and liking you if you get this many followers, if you drive this car, if you present yourself this way.
The superficialities.
That's materialistic, superficial kind of.
So how do you derive your value though?
Well, like I said, Heston, my value, mate, is me doing everything I can to. When helping other people, in whether it's just helping someone walk across the road, pick up rubbish off the floor, giving someone a call who's in grief, or physically doing so, whatever it may be, that just ignites me.
Gotcha. What about when you're alone? Okay, when it's just you? What is that inner fire? Is it just simply looking forward to that next? You're a planner. You're looking forward to that next opportunity. But when you're in your quiet moments, when you're at your own personal demotivating moments, what is it that really sparks you up?
Well, that's it. Like, we're all going to hit that moment. We all deal with it different ways. And I mean, for myself, like I prefaced this conversation, was the fact that I have a choice is a privilege. We don't get to choose our circumstances. We all get dealt different cards, and it's going to be easier and harder for other people depending what you're looking at. But knowing that I've got to deliberate with my own self and try to rationalize things. I don't necessarily have to understand it, but I have to know that at the end of the day, I've got to take that extreme accountability and responsibility. And I can't point fingers at anybody else saying my life would be better, it would be easier, this wouldn't have happened to me if A, B, and C. And I just taking that stance is empowering, it's invigorating, and you want to teach others that because it kind of sets you free.
That's it, taking control of your own narrative.
Yeah.
You know, we were saying this beforehand, during my career, went from a place where I was, performing at the top of my game and then sort of getting out, struggling to find a bit of purpose, a bit of that identity. And one of the quotes I just personally love is, wouldn't it be sad if all too late you realise you're the only person holding yourself back? And it sounds like you're never holding yourself back, mate. That's pretty fantastic. And everything I've learned over this last even couple of months with some of the success with Voice of a Veteran, it's been, so many times been sitting there waiting for, Big Brother or whatever to, be doing these things on your behalf or whatever. And then as soon as you sort of hit that switch and realise that literally, you're the guy or girl who can make this happen, it's pretty incredible to sort of appreciate that headspace. And, that's what I get to see from you, mate. You're just doing it.
Well, that's it. We are the catalyst, right, to anything, whether it's good or bad.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
And it's so easy to lose your way, and whether it's self-destructive behaviour or you depower yourself, so to speak, when you put that into other people. And I'm not perfect, mate. I've got my flaws, and I constantly do. I constantly slip up and do wrong, but being honest with myself and being honest with others, that genuine sort of frame of mind. Because if it's easy to lie to yourself, it's easy to say, I'm training hard enough. I'm putting myself out there hard, enough. I do good for other people, and you start to believe it. So that's where these training protocols and certain dynamics, group dynamics that I learned from the military, really were transferable benefits for people, sort of deep-seated minded antics. So, not cutting corners, like don't short rep yourself or don't, whatever it may be. Why is that important? Well, if you're going to cut corners in your training, obviously when it's test time, you're going to fail, or you're going to cut corners in your relationships, in your career, and you start to grease that groove, that habitual thinking, that default setting where you're just like, fuck, it's hard. All right, I'll just stop and say I did it.
Mate, there are so many brilliant golden and diamond nuggets I want to pull out of this from, everything you're saying is through a lens of responsibility. A lot of conversation I have with people where I find they lose their way is when they start looking at things like they're entitled. That's where they start to get that negativity. I deserve better than this, I deserve this, whereas everything you're saying is, no, I'm actually responsible for this, be those successes, be those failures. And in that accountability piece is so huge, and self-accountability is one of the hardest things to do. Yourself in the military life where people talk about discipline and motivation. It's so much easier to have someone else be accountable for you. I know I myself, getting out of that military culture, I was always responsible for others. And that self-accountability personally over the last year was something I really dropped off. But you can tell, mate, you have that mindset. And then the last piece is, we focus a lot on, and I'm trying to get people to focus a lot more on their purpose, why they want to do what they want to do. But as you're saying, one of my favourite quotes I got from my dad is, throughout life, be good at your job and be a good person. How you do what you do will define who you are now and into the future. And how you do, and focusing on that, not just getting the outcome, is where people are going to learn along the way. And you're talking about things like muscle memory in that process, be it not cutting a corner on a rep, is so applicable across every part of your life, because you're actually training mental muscle memory and attitudinal muscle memory. It's so critical, and it's so impressive sitting here listening to you draw those out. And for everyone listening, I really want them to take those golden nuggets away.
And it's funny you say that, even something as simple as not leaving the workstation or your training to go and get a drink of water. Think about other people, right? People still in the trenches.
Is that because Gatorade's better?
Gatorade's way better. No. Essentially, let's win and lose as a team. And don't have your hands on your hips, don't have your hands on your head, don't be in the fetal position. Like, think about how you stand, your posture. Your posture is a reflection of your mindset, and as a group, if you all can be standing tall and you can all be shaking your limbs out, ready for the next task, rather than hands on your knees, hands on your head, wimping, thinking, oh God, fuck, what am I doing in my life?
Yeah.
Your posture is going to make a change.
Yeah,
and this is just basic, right?
One of my last jobs was flying around the country. I ran the selection course for commandos and support staff, and we would fly around the country to do the entry tests. You had to do a 2.4K waving run and a march and all this. And for me, there was a time that people had to come under, and that was it. And I stood there. You could come in, 14 minutes under the time, or you can come in 14 seconds under the time. And all I had my staff assessing was how that person crossed that line, and I had all my staff watching how they conducted themselves afterwards.
Yeah.
And you'd have the guy who got out the front and smashed it, just leaps and bounds, but then he collapses and carries on like a bloody stuck pig.
Yes.
Through to the last person who is, busting their ass. They can't just jog in. Yeah. Casual as a daisy, busting their ass, and they want to die, but you could just tell they had that self-respect, they had that composure, because that's the people that have that self and situational awareness. Those who just smash it, they're just self-aware about their own results, but being situational aware does require more effort, but you're so on the money there, mate. It's impressive to hear that in the civilian world. I like it.
Yeah, well, I started a charity, and we can talk about it a little bit, called Trek for Vets, and what the premise is, essentially, one of the acts that we do is we do the midnight to dawn march. So we start at midnight and we trek through the night, and we finish at the dawn service. And it's just, it's phenomenal watching people who have never done it before, thinking it's going to be a casual walk, and you've got a pace. It's just, you're stepping out real hard. You can go clean skin, or you can have, torsion bar, weighted vest, pack, whatever. And it's a mixture of military, ex-serving and civilians. And seeing people going, oh fuck, like I really depend on the person in front of me and behind me, and you can just watch people break. Yeah. Before they even start, or as they're starting, you can just see
mentally,
things mentally. There's
like,
we're 3Ks in, we've got another 20 to go, and my heart rate's jumping through my mouth. My legs are already sore. What the fuck have I done? And just that self-doubt and exposure to something new. And that's where the team comes together, and that leadership comes in, and people rally together and like, why are you here? Like, you should know why you're here. It's beyond you. It's beyond your difficulty. You're sacrificing a night of sleep. You're sacrificing, obviously, the torture it is to pack march through the night, and then standing up for an hour at the dawn service. That is so insignificant and so small compared to for the real reason that we're doing it. And giving people that inner fuel to come through. So
that's so awesome. You do that every year before Anzac Day. Finishes on dawn service.
Correct. Yeah.
Cool.
So
whereabouts?
It started in 2015 on the Central Coast. We go through a really good national park through the Central Coast, and it started with my battle fit crew. We only had like 30, 35 of us. Last year, or the year before last, we had about 350 to 400. Okay. And we had different contingents around Australia, so Brisbane, Canberra, and places in Sydney. So the last year in 2020, we were meant to have 12 locations, and we had numbers. It was something that was just a concept, and it really derived from me at the dawn service. It was pouring down, raining, and there was these two girls in front of me. They said, you know what, our Anzacs would have had to fight through the rain. Yeah. I just thought a little bit of adversity made the day more significant for these girls who had no idea. And I was like, fuck it, let's get people to march through the night and singing the same song and know why they're there, and donating funds to a good cause. And so I really want to get massive groundswell behind this and get this across the country. We've got New Zealand, America, and the UK are interested as well.
Jobs on. I don't love that stuff.
Mate.
There's so many elements to that. Like, I have always loved and gravitated towards fitness even after service, because as you know yourself, mate, it's the great equalizer. A push-up is a push-up. Doesn't matter if you're a CEO or the assistant. A push-up is a push-up. Through adversity, in crisis is when we show our true colours, be those character, be those culture. And given adversity, that's when actually people either come together, show their true character, or fracture apart. And then even our commando trainings, what you can't bring about in physical fitness and activities, the weather can help you out with. We would drop people out in the Sydney Harbour through to, just being cold and wet as well as tired and hungry. There's nothing quite like it, mate. So you've mastered those elements, and then take people out into open spaces. We're talking about that sort of awe training, or just feeling smaller and insignificant, in areas where you feel smaller than everything else, helps to remove that anxiety that people carry through and walk around carrying with these every single day. So you've really got a winning formula there, mate. And then giving people a purpose where Anzac Day in our veteran community is so pivotal. And I mean, so many of our veteran community were hurting not being able to celebrate it last year.
Yeah.
Plans for this year?
Mate, we are actually marrying up with Mates for Mates.
Okay.
So to become, we always pushed our money to Mates for Mates because, we could have become a charity, but the problem is that I don't have boots on the ground to where this money needs to go.
Yeah, gotcha.
I'd have to go out, research,
good on you.
so I wanted to push this forward to people who already built the foundations.
Yeah.
Doing my research, speaking to friends, this seemed like the best idea. And so we've been donating to them every year. Yep. I did some work with them on social media actually, recently in a recent campaign. They asked me, hey Andrew, what would be your fee to post up and advertise this campaign? And I laughed. I was like, I can't charge charity. This is against everything. So I said to them, what's your budget? Because and I sound like an asshole, but I'll finish this on a good note. Uh-huh. And they said, we've got $1,000. Yep. And I said, I can do a post for $1,000. And so I post up. I told them, yep, send the money to me. And the funny thing was that the whole campaign was about if you donate your money on a particular day, they double it, their partners. So I just donated $1,000 back and then made them an extra.
Good
yeah. So, no, it's great.
Jeez, they teach you a lot on that gap year, don't they? Good to go, mate.
Yeah. So it was great to obviously give back and help out with this great cause. They were able to raise over $100,000 and do some good things and host some new programs. But they have asked to officially partner with Trek for Vets. Okay. And so, they've got, like I said, the boots on the ground and everything to sort of get this to the next, scale it up.
All about it. But, I raise Voice of Veteran as like a communications platform, mate. We're not a charity. We're not any of that. There's so many others who are boots on the ground doing so much good stuff. And if anything we want to do is just like help amplify those. And it's awesome having, you did your bloody gap year, mate, and you're still there contributing to the veteran community. That's epic. So well done for that, mate.
Well, mate, this is a part of the healing process for me for seeing my friend. Yep. And this is like, fuck, I have to give back some way. So, being able to do that, it helps me, and it also I know that I'm hoping to prevent this and for other families as well.
Absolutely, mate. Just in the current culture and climate that is everything to do with COVID and mental health and physical health requirements. It's just so epic that, essentially in my head, we have you out there as a training cell, putting civilians through this sort of experience stuff, which is stuff that, I'd happily have things like, everyone who doesn't have a career set after high school goes and does gap year, or if in the meantime we have as many people doing this, how can people find out and get on board with this?
With the Trek for Vets?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I've now got it's a feather in my hat that I want to make this happen bigger and louder.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Thank you. No, it's we've got a website, tretforvets.org. Okay. But we are building a new website. I am jumping on the phone with Mates for Mates tomorrow, and we're going to scale it up and to obviously get it across the nation, mate. To start making funds that are going to make meaningful impact. But it's really about connecting. Yeah. Bridging the gap between the civilians and veterans, and
for sure, building that community,
knowing that there's more to supporting our vets beyond Anzac Day.
Absolutely.
You got to be proud of your country and what we've done and the people who have served every day of the year.
And just a small context of what as that's sort of like a basic training piece. Exactly. Just some small context of what people go through. Yeah,
it's about giving them an opportunity to give back, because not everyone can go and serve 4 years.
Absolutely.
Plus. Yeah. So if we can give them an opportunity that entices the fitness community, there's a large pop who are into trying something new. Like you look at obstacle racing, you look at all the running events. If we can entice that community with a greater purpose than fulfillment of achieving something for themselves, but now supporting others.
How you do it?
And then we just grow it. Yeah. And every contingent that we have is ran or supported by vets.
Yeah, got it.
So I don't want this is not going to be like, Jim owner will take over and someone over here, Joe Blow. It needs to be people who are grounded, who understand, who know how to conduct files and files and files of people. Gotcha. So we have, with hundreds of people.
Cover off.
Yeah, we can't step off at midnight.
Yeah, gotcha.
Because there is a sense of urgency where it's time sensitive that you've got to get to the dawn service. So we've had moments where we've had to pick people up on our shoulders and just run with them because the support vehicles can't get where we're at, and we're just,
stretcher carries from the rear, mate. Get into it.
It's brutal in some points, but it just like you said, it gives them a little bit of a slither of what happens.
For sure, and even just that, mate, veterans also, empowering veterans to give back as well. That's a huge part. So much of what we're doing is that veterans helping veterans and just others helping others. It's so therapeutic, cathartic for you to be able to be that force that actually provides that support to people. And particularly in your case, mate, what you're doing there is providing veterans with, something that is actually sort of bread and butter for them.
Yes.
And to be honest, mate, in this COVID world of 1.5 meter spacings and everything, who better than to maintain the spacings and distances and files and that is things are ticking over in my head, particularly if we have to face another Anzac Day this year on lockdown. These sort of activities, if run professionally and expert, as you're sort of saying, can help mitigate all those requirements to still achieve what is needed on that day, and reflecting, remembering, but also bringing together people for that community piece. So that's awesome. All right, we're gonna talk more on this. We're gonna social media stuff and get amongst it. Awesome. Mate, you are a very happy, cheery character. When are you not? What gets you down? What really brings you down to, or where have you been at your lowest?
Good questions. Look, I'm into my ultra training, ultra events, so multi-day, multi-stage events where you
have issues though.
Yeah. Again, Heston, this is a part of where I started, and I think again, you can't.
It's that mental game.
Everyone can fluff a 100 meter run.
Yeah, mate.
Anyone can do that, but 100 kilometer run, 5, 7, 8 day run, whatever it may be, you can't. You've got to work for it. You've got to build. You've got to fail. There's the highs and lows, and so the correlation between life and ultra running or ultra events is very similar. Where if you're going into an ultra event thinking it's all going to be okay, you're going to lose, or you're going to suffer a lot more. If you go into it knowing
it's not even losing, it's probably just pulling out. Yeah,
people may lose the cutoff times. They might self-withdraw. That's right. But if you're going into it realizing that, there's going to be lows, I'm ready for it, and I know what to action and how to think when I hit those places because it's inevitable. Then you're going to enjoy those highs, those euphoric moments that we discuss about feeling small, feeling insignificant, being having that euphoria of like it's that transcendence beyond your own problems and day-to-day things. You're doing something that gives you fulfillment, doing something that's beyond what people would say is normal. It's really invigorating, but hitting those lows and then going, this is how we're going to respond. You finish the race and you feel like you've achieved something really, really good. So it's also the preparation and the structure it gives you, and knowing that if you obviously shortcut your training, you're going to suffer immensely during the time that you put yourself through.
Got it, mate. So you have to go out there and give yourself these physical challenges to hit those low points. Yeah.
So look, life for me, like personal life, personal circumstances is hard. Like it's hard enough, and there's a lot of low points, and I've been through stuff that, we all have a story, and this is not me feeling sorry for myself. Been through things that aren't easy, and that is something that I don't want. I'm not running away from anything necessarily. It's like I also don't know whether some of my family members didn't fall ill with mental illness until they're in their 30s.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I don't know whether it's a ticking time bomb.
Yep.
But I'm not living in a life of fear. Oh, I'm just taking control as much as I can and doing everything I can to set me up in a position that I could hopefully mitigate that ever happening.
Well, I reckon you're doing pretty well, mate. But one point is, where those fractures or potential break-in points occur is transitions in our life. You've been through a lot of transitions yourself, some planned, some not planned. Your transition over here to West Australia has been very planned. But like we're saying before, you've got your wife's family over here. What about your own sort of support network? You've gone through a very large change, a very large transition from professional career. I know you've got a lot of things going on, but how fresh is the move over here?
Let me look at my watch. It was about 26 days ago.
Okay, gotcha. So you've gone through a big transition piece in your life. You set about, I can tell, you set about establishing your routine. You have your sanctuary here. You have your places. What's your sort of support network like over here? Is it all your wife's family, and what do you need to help you stay motivated and engaged?
Look, support network is massive.
Yep.
And I haven't been in touch with my family for a number of years now. And losing that, because I think people have a preconceived notion of what family should be.
Absolutely.
And so I was thinking, I've got to stick around, I've got to support, I've got to be their rock. And then it came to meeting Renee's family and being at, certain functions with them and realizing, oh wait, hold on, is this how a functioning family carries themselves? I'm like, it really exposed how dysfunctional things were for me.
Yep.
Trying to mend it, trying to make it work, it didn't work, and I realized that you've got to choose your family. Yep. Family by blood is, I understand that concept, but
we can't pick our family by blood, but we can pick our family we keep.
Exactly. Yeah, mate, exactly right. And so I understood that sticking with them wasn't going to be in my best interest and not for my future. So I had to do what I had to do. And coming across the country, Renee and I moving to the next chapter, this was the obvious choice. Renee's family's fantastic, and they are a massive support for me. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm still in contact with my brother. He went through something similar that I did. Okay. He lives up in Cairns, and we get to chat on the phone. We didn't speak for 7 years.
Yeah, right.
And he's 12 years older than me, and he's a great guy. And having that base in my corner is really good. Yeah. But this fitness community, I've been burned hard from certain individuals and certain groups within the community, but I've been given so much more with my 365 community, the active escapes, these fitness retreats that I do, Trek for Vets. And I believe that what I put out there, hopefully people can see that it's coming from a real place. And when they reciprocate, that's where that support comes in.
Yeah. You talked a lot about that fitness community piece. You're all out there. For me, on the outside, it looks like you're spread pretty thin as far as what you do. But what I can see is you actually have a very good routine. And it sounds like that emotional support at home is obviously Renee, and you probably have your own type friends. Have you brought more friends over here, or did you have friends over here as well? Or?
Well, all my lifelong friends on the East Coast.
Yeah.
I have acquaintances through 365 and through Active Escapes, and but there's been an amazing amount of response of people reaching out saying, hey man, I'll take you on this trail run, we're going to go up here, check out this surf spot.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Which is really cool.
Here in the local community.
Yeah.
Don't get that on the East Coast, mate.
No, that's right.
Unless they want something from you.
Exactly. No. So having that is, I understood that like friends are important, of course, man. But this...
But it's what you need. Yeah. That's the biggest thing I've learned even most recently is, that some people aren't meant to be in your life forever.
Yeah.
And you just got to find those that value add to you and end up making you happy. Particularly someone like yourself, mate. I could see that you would attract a lot of people who want things from you.
Yeah.
Whereas finding those people who don't and actually value add to you. Do you have a big circle of friends, or do you just have that sort of tight-knit crew?
I have a small group of mates who I've known since... Some I've known since I was 7 years old. Okay. And some I've known since I was 18. Yeah. But we've all been through everything together, and we're each other's groomsmen. We catch up when we can. We're going through this next phase of our life, being 30, and that's it's good to have. Yeah. And I actually catch up with them on online playing Xbox, Call of Duty.
Oh God,
get a headset into it, mate. Oh look,
I did not pick that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's your bloody creative release, is it?
Yeah. It's fun to explain. But that is my time to unwind. Yeah. Because when you train and you're physically exerting yourself, you're not thinking about problems because you're in that headspace of like, got to get done. But that's physically taxing. Yeah. And so I can't always physically tax myself when I need to switch off, because reading a book, watching a movie, my mind wanders. Yeah. So getting into a game where it requires 100% of your focus,
I'm with you.
It's not physically taxing. That's where I get that release. But it's about once a week I get to play it.
Oh, get allowed to?
I'm allowed to.
You're rationed, are you?
I'm rationed hard. So I'm like, oh, Renee, you got a dinner with your friends again? How long? Okay, yep, no worries. Enjoy your time.
Have you got like a full chair and headset?
I wish. No, I've got a headset.
What's your call sign? What's your nickname?
Oh, that's embarrassing.
Tell me.
Pappy boy.
Happy boy.
I've had it since I was like 13 on the original Xbox, and I've just stuck with it.
Happy boy. Mate, you're going to be inundated by all forms of Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Assassins at the moment.
Yeah, let's link up.
Are you a camper?
No, not at all.
You're the one that like jumps and throws grenades.
Yeah, I get after it. I don't get my sleeping bag out and chill out.
Oh, good. Jeez, the poor old campers, mate. I haven't touched that stuff in ages.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very interesting, sitting here watching, mate. You've been through a lot. I think you're one of the most like well-grounded, well-established dudes as far as like your own personality. It's impressive to see. And you were talking before about the fitness community. I've dabbled in it just as far as raising and building business, but not as a trainer. And mate, you are all forms of a symbol that people would become competitive with and want to cut you down. Like, I'm sick of it in Australia, this tall poppy cutting syndrome. And this is, we're 2021, people listening to this, you've got a guy here talking about accountability, responsibility, about his passion to help others. If you heard words like entitlement, if you heard words that sounded like arrogance, then you're definitely not listening. It's people like you we should be propping up, but we don't do that. And particularly in the fitness community, where it's a pretty saturated terrain, and a lot of people think that their shit is the best going around there. How have you had to deal with that? I'm sure you've had it coming in from left, right and centre.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it, you pitched it well. People, I think trainers in particular are more concerned what other trainers think about them than their actual clients, their health and well-being of their clients. And it's such a low fruit to attain your certificate 3 and 4 that there's no high bar entry, that you don't get to weed out people who shouldn't be there. There's fantastic trainers out there who want to do best for others, and you can see that. And regardless if they're just a glorified timekeeper at a particular group gym setting, or they're academically pushing athletes, you can see the people who are focused on their craft and want to support their community and create a great culture. But you just get everyone in between who are looking at others and like, how can I use that person to capitalize my own gains, and how can I, social climb and all these other things, it's sad because they're not putting their job at the forefront through their actions. Their
purpose is completely wrong.
Exactly. And I think a good way of looking at it is if you can't champion someone's success or mourn someone's failures, if you're not doing that, it comes from you, right? So if you achieve some great success, I'll be the first person to tell you, well done. I'll be the first person to tell you to pull your head in as well if you're doing something stupid.
Accountability,
But I'll also be the first person to give you a call, see how you're doing if something shit happened. That's because I'm secure in myself and what I'm doing. And I find that people who are the first ones to point fingers and stomp on someone when they're down, and the people to talk behind someone's back, and like you said, tall poppy syndrome, when there's some success achieved, it's just complete reflection on themselves. And knowing that doesn't make it easier to bear with, but I think understanding it is going to help you. Okay, well, I've just got to keep the focus on me and what I'm doing. I don't know whether it spawns from us being convicts, mate, and always being for the, honestly, this is what I've thought about this.
Good, all right, I like it.
Coming from a country where we were all convicts and we were always kind of had our fist up at authority, and it's all about the underdog. That's where I think our mindset is wrong, where you look at America, who went over there to start a new life, to pioneer and to explore. They're the ones who really, what I've seen, champion each other's success. Someone could take off their shirt and flex, and people are like, fuck yeah, that dude's ripped, how good. You do it in Australia, you get a tomato thrown at your head and saying, sit down, right? And I'm just using that as a simple analogy.
No, I'm with you, absolutely.
And I just find that, if you've got that mindset and thinking that, you want to chop everyone down who's doing good, and you're not going to support people when they need you, I just don't find that you're going to get anything from yourself.
Yeah, I feel that it can be very sheltered here on our beautiful island down here in the south, and you're right, but it's something definitely ingrained within culture. But I mean, this is the great part about culture, you can change it. And there's guys like yourself, mate, who stand up, and it comes from that place, like you said, just being secure in what you're doing, but also being insecure why you're doing it. I'm sure you're not always secure in what you're actually doing there and then, but you're secure in why you want it to be done. And even like you're saying in the fitness industry, focusing on the outcome for the person you're supporting, as opposed to, fitness is so individual. Life is so individual. How can people become so competitive with each other when your outcome is to derive the best value for the individual, the group, whatever you're sort of doing? It's just, there's such low-level petulant conversations, and it's so easy for people to get caught up on them. But I mean, even to anyone listening on this, even the great man like Andrew Pap, I'd see you get it left, right and centre. It's so important just to not buy into it, just to keep doing what you're doing.
It's hard, mate. We're social creatures,
Absolutely.
When someone tells you something...
do they tell you, mate? Do they ever say it to your face, or is it always...
Oh, don't worry. I've sat down with individuals and ambush them and said, oh, I heard this and that. And they just melt, mate. They melt. They don't know how to conduct themselves. But besides, there's certain individuals and whatever is going on, it is that culture that exists. People, I think social media really inflates that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it is
it's so easy for people to get on social media and themselves not actually come out attacking, but it just starts, by them potentially dropping something little, potentially thinking you're not being authentic or whatever. But it's so easy, I find it myself, to suddenly just stop myself. It's like, hey, would you say that to that person's face? Imagine if we just all went about doing that, how much easier it would be. Because they're never the people that do it to your face.
Nah.
And unfortunately, doing it yourself is then rubbing off on someone else. It's the smallest little steps we can put in place.
Yeah, it is a double-edged sword. It serves for good and for bad.
You have all the military sayings. I like it. Yeah, it's a good one.
It is, mate. I mean, it is for good and for bad, and it's really up to the user. And again, it's you got to be responsible. Whether you have 5 followers or 5 million followers, you got to be responsible for the content you put out there. Yeah. Not everyone has an account to change anything. Some people just do it because it makes money, or it's their own ego, or it's a hobby. Yeah. All right. So you can't have one big thing I learned a few years back was to stop putting my own expectations onto other people. I can't expect people to conduct themselves the way that or hold the standards that I do, because I would get angry and frustrated. And I also would see that because this is not saying I hold a certain standard and that's the pinnacle or the premium standard. There's many things that I'm building and I'm the first one to admit when I've done wrong and my weaknesses. But not everyone thinks like that.
Yep.
When shit happens, people think about poor me or whatever it may be. Yeah. People don't conduct themselves in a certain way. So I think I have to be more empathetic, and so not put those expectations. So I can't expect people are going to get around me like I would for someone and say, good job for doing A, B, and C, or let me help you out. And if someone doesn't do that for me, I'm not disappointed.
Yeah. This is this conversation on vulnerability versus weakness. It sounds like you have fully matured to appreciate that, they're not all weaknesses. Being vulnerable is actually a fantastic part about being human, because as soon as you take on something that you're not good at, or something that didn't go the way you wanted to, or something that does affect you, it actually empowers you. It puts armor on that and adds it to your repertoire. What does that sort of word vulnerability mean to you?
Mate, it just reminds me of being a young kid, just dealing with the issues that I had to face. And your family is your soundboard, your rock and your support system. But when those issues are occurring from within, what do you do? So I had to go through a lot of self-processing and understand. I had to mature quite quickly to survive and move forward. So I've had that appreciation of not neglecting how I feel and my mother did teach me how to be a very good communicator. And I was able to take that through into everything that I've done, and it's really enabled me to gain insight and empower myself, like you said, not to let it drown you out and say that weakness and vulnerability are two different things. I think that's something that we all need to appreciate and give thought, because too many of us are overwhelmed by our weaknesses and think that aspect of vulnerability, I guess, especially with the army, especially being a man, especially maybe even this day and age, we have to feel our own feelings.
Yep.
And we get taught not to. And so I'm someone...
catch up to you.
Yeah, I'm someone on the cusp that's like, you got to feel it, but you got to put things in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't let it control you. You need to control your feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice. All right, mate, there's been so much covered here. I'm sitting here. I like to call these my mental fitness sessions. We talk so much about mental health. One little thing, if I can try and change, is mental fitness. I see a psychologist, I see a psychiatrist. They're my mental health sessions, but it's just conversations, like these, that help you build those pathways and mind frames in your own head. Speaking to others helps draw things out, feel more relatable. Even to your story, mate. You feel a bit more human to me just sitting here talking to you. You're not just fucking biceps and burpees. But, mate, what's the biggest lesson? This is those questions. The biggest lesson in life that you've learned so far, if you could go back and talk to whoever, your younger self, you probably got like myself, who's like, I'm happy with every lesson that I've learned. But something that you feel that, someone listening could be empowered by just what you've learned throughout your life to date.
Look, I did actually say this earlier in the podcast, and I'm going to have to reiterate it again, because it's a piece that doesn't matter the severity of the situation and circumstances that you're going through, whether it's light or very heavy, it's a universal truth. that we define ourselves not by our circumstances, but by how we respond to those circumstances. Because, you know, you talk to people about, I didn't choose this, like, you know, I didn't choose to lose my job. I didn't choose for someone to pass away. And of course you didn't. And it's fucking shit, right? Of course that sucks. Of course you can be angry. Of course you can be upset. But continuing that path, that self-destructive thought, continuing not to do anything about it and pointing your fingers at other people, it's going to take everything away from you, anything that's left. And if you want to rebuild or capitalize on any opportunity, it just comes down to yourself. And it's the small things. Like for 12 months straight, I didn't pee in the shower. That was a challenge I put to myself. And let me explain my thought process on this, mate. Before
I love that segue. That was good. Yep.
Before everyone turns this podcast off, I was thinking to myself, peeing in the shower, it's easy, it's comfortable, it's convenient,
efficient. Yep.
It's efficient. But if I can't stop myself from peeing in the shower, how can I achieve anything worth having?
Wow.
So mate, it's so simple.
We are going to have the pee-free pee-free challenge. Shower pee-free. Yeah. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah. And I know it's so simple and it's idiotic, but
no, it's huge, mate. It's actually a huge thing. And, you know, during this last period, we stepped up a support group for a bunch of people who have been caught in lockdown and hotel isolation. And a lot of that stuff coming down to routine and discipline. And so many people are great with routine and discipline when they have extrinsic motivations, when they have others holding themselves accountable. But it's actually through our own individual accountability, holding ourselves to accountable for something that only we can hold ourselves accountable to, that you actually achieve real personal growth and self-development in those private moments. You know, unless there's someone in the shower, making sure you don't pee. It's so, you know, this is where we say things like, you'll hear people like Admiral McRaven and Obama, you know, making your bed in the morning. Yes. You can do, these are things that you don't have to do, but just small individual steps throughout the day to help hold you accountable, because it actually shows to you, hey, you know, I can do these things. Yeah. And that's really where I fell off the rails getting out of the military. I was around my platoon or my company of dudes all the time, and I was always in a leadership position, whatever. And it was actually during those times where I had nothing more than just to look after my dog, and thank God I had to look after my dog, that I really realised that I was terrible at self-accountability unless I was in front of others. So I'm going to take that not pee in the shower metaphor and run with that, mate. That might even be the intro to this podcast. Who knows?
Hey, mate, it's a big lesson. And I think, like you're saying, and that's like, look, that's the philosophy of the 365 is people are like, oh, do I have to train every day? Is it train every day for 365 days? And it's not. It's far from it. It's that every day presents itself as an opportunity to be able to take that step in the right direction, no matter how small or big it is, and about building sustainability and building habits that help change your default setting to serve you. Yep. And that's where we have those little things where it could be, whether it's meditation, whether it's movement, whether it's some small things you can do for your own self-building, self-empowerment. Yeah. And it goes such a long way, because everyone looks at somebody who has achieved X and thinks, I got to do what they're doing. Yeah. When it's not the right way. You are so far from doing what they're doing. You need to do what they did to get there. Yeah, gotcha. And that's it. And then that's the biggest thing. Like, why would I get a client? Someone's like, oh, I want to deadlift. I want to go get as strong as I can. I wouldn't go, okay, what's your first time in the gym? Just pick up that 300 kilo barbell off the floor. That expectation on yourself is you're gonna fail. You got to go through all the highs and lows and everything that surrounds achieving such feats. Yep. And that's what the everyday 365 represents.
Absolutely, you're building those pathways, mate. You're all over it. All right. What is the future? This is my old and saggy question. What is the future of Andrew Pap? Mate, you're on a mission. You're a man on a mission. You've got your purpose. You've got so much bubbling potential. Where are you in 10, 20, 50 years when you are old and saggy?
Old and saggy. Yeah. Yeah, I understand. Look, mate, hopefully the aim is to be surrounded by loved ones and family of my own. Yep. To be continuing to self-evolve and push myself year in, year out to new endeavors, whether that's, running through the Alps, doing an Ironman, doing all these things that gives me that structure, gives me that purpose and appreciation of, the benefits of being disciplined. Yeah. And having those transcendence moments. Yeah, gotcha. When you're within your own craft. Focusing on the 365 and expanding that, and also making Trek for Vet something that's unmatched in terms of bringing communities together, making a big difference. So,
brilliant.
And mate, raising kids to feel and think the same.
That's it. Move to WA to maybe have some chitlins.
Yeah, look, it's a great place for it.
Yeah,
and it gives us the ability of having the support from Renee's family.
Don't let them go swimming out there in the ocean too much, mate. With the big sharks over here.
They're terrible.
But that's great. I want to quickly jump on that, people. What you saw was a lot of people think that they need to have, these end goals. When I'm, 80, I'm going to have this. I'm going to have this. I'm going to have this. Family is definitely one of those key things. You mentioned a couple of key projects there, but what you've actually demonstrated is that sort of open goal mindset. The focus is 100% on the journey, how you're getting there, to making sure that wherever you are in 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you are growing and increasing your capabilities as an individual to tackle anything that needs to be faced. A lot of people get so hell-bent on achieving individual accomplishments, and it's pivotal to have those. So as we have that response and that feedback and that accomplished feeling, but that sort of proactive mindset that you have to continually self-develop is impressing, mate. And how can our community help you? How can we help keep you accountable?
Mate, look, I have a platform on Instagram which has been amazing to be able to share my life on there, or bits and pieces. And
it's just Andrew Pap.
Andrew Pap.
With a big blue tick.
So yeah, Andrew_Pap_.
Yeah, gotcha.
Trekforvets.org is a big thing that people can go on there and just keep up to date, whether it's the Facebook group or on the website.
Awesome.
There's going to be big news coming for 2021, which is exciting. So if you can do good by me, that's do good by Trek for Vets. That'd be great. Good.
Okay. Really appreciate it, mate. Well, thank you so much for your time, legend. It's been so impressive sitting here listening to you as the person filled with purpose and accountability, and you're wise beyond your years, mate. You're like a fit fucking Buddha sitting across from you. We are going to have you back on, mate. We're going to have you back on to do an authenticity ambush. I'm not going to tell you what that is.
Good.
But what I like to do with the Voice of Veteran community is, too many people I think go around and just do one-off podcasts. Yeah. But like I said, what are your aspirations? What are your goals? You're going through a transition in your life. I'd love to come back and check in with you and see how you're going. Absolutely, and see some reflection and see some progression and see if you are practicing what you're preaching, mate. That's where I enjoy.
That's great. You can put me under a microscope. But
yeah, good.
I mean, at the end of the day, like 7 years ago, I would not think I'd be here.
Yeah, good, mate.
And so it's one thing that, particularly speaking to individuals who are going into the fitness industry, where they're doing the Cert 3 and 4, and they're asking, how do I become a trainer and, active escapes? How do I achieve my own online business? How do I open up a gym? And you're like, these are great goals to go for, to endeavor, but you've come into an industry that's to serve others. Yeah. And if it doesn't manifest itself in those key concepts, the concept will still be there, but might manifest itself in you being a nurse, you being a dietitian, you being something else. So I think as much you want to be focused and set in on one idea, have that fluidity and an ability to pivot when necessary to continue that, that, like we said, that key element of purpose and drive and authenticity. Something's going to derive from it. Yeah, absolutely, mate. I look at you, and you've been doing this for much longer than me, in saying that it's only been in the last few months that I've finally appreciated that I don't need all these achievements. I just need to be doing what makes me feel the most value, makes me feel happy, what is my true and authentic purpose, and everything else will come to it. Yeah. And it's very impressive sitting here with you to actually appreciate you've been doing that for years. You've been doing that the whole time, mate. That's really impressive to see and impressive to keep watching, and thanks so much for having us on. Thanks, mate. Thanks for having us.
Pleasure. See you, mate.
Thanks for listening to the Voice of a Veteran podcast. We really hope that there were some key takeaways that might help you, be they relatable, be they aspirational, but we're not just here for your entertainment, so please make sure you remember, move on and action from here.
And that's it, guys. If you've heard something here today that has truly helped you, it's our duty to share that information with as many as we can. Support is about being proactive, and that's taking action to better our own lives as well as the lives as many mates as we can.
We love your support getting these messages out, so please subscribe, go to our YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Voice of a Veteran. Catch you next time.
See ya.